Okay, but don't start yet. The butterflies, the peppermo, carry small pieces of light and
Good evening, everyone. I'm Nicholas, and I'll be your host for tonight. It is my pleasure to be standing here giving you this talk on archaeoastronomy. I selected this topic specifically because I feel there's a lot of things we can learn from the ancient past, just that we don't realize it at all. But I think it's better if I just show it to you directly. Without further ado, let's just start. So today we'll be covering, thank you. Today we'll be covering four main areas. Introduction, every talk needs an introduction. Then we'll go on to archaeoastronomical research. So there's three main areas that we will focus on, following which we will do a case study of two particular archaeoastronomical sites. And lastly, every presentation needs a conclusion as well. So, introduction. What is archaeoastronomy? It's a pretty long term, isn't it? Archaeoastronomy. 8 syllables. That's already 7 syllables longer than my standard text reply. So, I'm sure all of you can realize that archaeoastronomy is a composite of two fields. Anyone can guess which two fields are these? And thank you. Oh, hi. We are just starting. Take a seat. Yes, archaeology and astronomy. So, archaeology is the study of the ancient past by excavating and examining past relics as well as architecture. Astronomy refers to the study of celestial bodies and related phenomena and how it affects the people around. Archaeoastronomy combines the two, combining two very specialized fields. When you combine two very specialized fields, what do you get? You get unemployment. I'm joking. You get the best of both worlds. Archaeoastronomy combines aspects of both archaeology and astronomy. Essentially, it's the study of how people in the past viewed the night sky and how the night sky affected their practices, behavior, culture, and so on and so forth. So, before we go on, I would like to show you this quote by Edwin Krupp. Sorry, I'm not sure how to pronounce. Across the world are ruins of ancient monuments with astronomical significance. They mark the same kind of commitment that transported us to the moon and our spacecraft to Mars. Now, we have to dig deeper in order to understand the significance of this. Essentially, all these ancient monuments that were constructed in the past, they all indicate humanity's first attempts at understanding the universe. They indicate our first attempts at trying to understand something bigger than whatever that we are currently. Even now, we are struggling to comprehend how vast the universe is. It is this same ambition that is driving us today to build spacecraft, to build space probes, to build rockets. It's the same natural innate curiosity that drove the people in the past to build these monuments that is driving us now to discover more about the universe. So, I'm not sure how familiar all of you are with archaeoastronomy. Can I invite some people to give examples on what they think archaeoastronomical sites are? Do you have an idea? Huh? Okay, good try. Anyone here want to give a guess? Stonehenge, yes, thank you. Stonehenge. Anyone here? Woo! Round of applause. Don't shake your head. Do you know any? Ah. Okay, yeah, Stonehenge, everyone knows, right? So here are some archaeoastronomical sites that you can see. Some of them have astronomical significance. Some of them a bit debatable. But the one thing they all have in common is that no one in their right mind is going to wake up one day and think to themselves, hey, I'm going to build a bunch of rocks in the middle of nowhere. It doesn't make sense, right? All these structures are all carefully engineered, well thought out, and well aligned, and all constructed with the help of hundreds, thousands of people. That's the one thing they all have in common. And they have secrets that we didn't realize before, that we are slowly starting to learn even now. So, who's that outside? Hello. Take a seat anywhere. We were a bit of the ways through. Right, okay. So, archaeoastronomical research, there are three main focuses that archaeoastronomical research is focusing on. The first one is the use of calendars. Now, calendars are commonly used by many civilizations. There's a saying that goes, when faced with a common enemy, humanity will unite. In this case, that enemy is time. Time is the enemy of all men. All men grow old, all men die. No one escapes from the ravages of time. And people of the past and now, we have came up with calendars to govern time, to give meaning to the passage of time. These people have used calendars for timekeeping purposes, either through the regulation of communal activities, or for, as you can see here, the Mayans used it for ritual cycles. They developed a calendar specifically for rituals only. But the more important use of calendars is for agriculture. I'm sure it's important, otherwise how would the farmers know when they're going to plant their crops? Specifically, the Egyptians, they used the heliacal rising of Sirius in order to calibrate their agricultural calendar. Sirius is the brightest star in the night sky. Heliacal rising refers to the point in time where Sirius first rises in the eastern horizon directly before the sun rises. All of you know, okay, maybe not all of you. Essentially, stars rise and set earlier each day by 4 minutes. So at some point, the star would be in the sky as the sun at the same time. At this point in time, you can't see the star because of the sunlight is blocking the view. As time progresses, eventually, the star will rise before the sun. So this first rising, the first time in the year where the sun is visible during the night, that is what heliacal rising is. And it happens at the same time every single year. And the Egyptians understood it. They correlated the heliacal rising of Sirius with the flooding of the Nile. So they used this event to calibrate their calendar. So this agricultural calendar used by the Egyptians is split into 3 seasons. The first one is the flooding of the Nile. So in this season, the Nile floods, and once the water recedes, the lands will become fertile. In the second season is when they plant their crops. They can plant their crops, and in the third season, it's harvest time. So they can harvest all their crops. This is an example of how people of the past use the stars as well as the calendar to their advantage. Quite interesting, eh? So, another reason we study the universe is to explain it. Study the skies to explain the universe. I'm sure all of you have heard some form of folklore or myth, either from your parents, grandparents when you were young, but maybe you didn't realize the astronomical significance behind them. There's an old Chinese folklore that says that when the sun turns black and the sky turns dark, the sun is being devoured by a heavenly dog, Tiankou. Now, I'm sure most of you might have actually realized that heavenly dogs don't exist. So, this story cannot possibly be real. I'm sure all of you also realize that this is actually related to an astronomical event. Anyone know which event this is? Yeah, eclipse. So, probably the people back then, they didn't realize what was happening. So they couldn't comprehend why the sky was turning dark. So they fabricated these stories as a form of coping mechanism, if you could call it that. But it gives an insight into what happened in the past. Even though it's not a direct reflection of a dog eating the sun, it has some semblance of truth that the sun is turning dark. So this is one way we can find out how people of the past saw the world. Another example is the Pleiades. I'm sure some of you know. Pleiades is an open star cluster in the constellation Taurus. If you have decent eyesight and you go to a relatively dark sky site, you'll be able to make out 6 relatively distinct stars out there. But the Pleiades by Greek mythology is the 7 sisters, right? So what gives? Where's the last star? Well, there are some Greek myths that describe the disappearance of one of the sisters through various stories. There's a whole bunch of them. You can go read it up if you want. But this disappearance is corroborated by an extinction of a star in 2000 BC. So, similar to the previous one, it does not reflect an entirely true story, but it might give some insight into what happened. The last area of research in archaeoastronomy is symbolisms of power. So, the people of the past, they often regarded the sky and celestial bodies as heavenly. So they incorporated their designs, their patterns into their clothing, their armor, their shields, as a symbolism of power. Essentially, they're saying, oh, God is on my side. I'm going to win this battle. But God can't be on everyone's side, so others still lose. So another way they portray symbolism of power is through the alignment of temples architecture. This is the temple of Amun-Re in Egypt, and it is aligned such that the rising winter solstice sun would completely illuminate this central corridor. It's not a mere coincidence that they constructed it this way. They had an understanding of how the sun would rise at a particular point in time every year, and they constructed this temple so that it would fulfill this purpose. Now that you know these 3 research topics, remember, use of calendars, myth and cosmology, symbolisms of power, we can move on to analyze 2 archaeoastronomical sites. Today, we're going to look at these 2 over here. First one is Egyptian and Nubian monuments. So these Nubian Neolithic structures are very, very old, some of the oldest in the world. And we'll also analyze Mayan temples. The Mayans are very well known for their systems. They got good mathematics, good astronomical ideas, calendars, as well as their arts and architecture are all very advanced. The only drawback is that they practice human ritualistic sacrifices, which is a no-go. So, looking at the Mayans first, as you can see, it's located in Central America near Mexico, and they developed over a large area. This is Mexico, this is the Mayan area. So this entire region is Mayan territory. The first settlements for the Mayans popped up in 1800 BC, and they lasted for about 2,000 years before the eventual, no, almost 3,000, until the eventual collapse of their civilization. And it's because the Spanish essentially wiped them out. Because the Spanish claimed that they had very barbaric ritualistic practices, even though they were so advanced in their system. The first Spaniards who reached Mayan territory, they were captured, and the saying goes that a large portion of them were sacrificed as human sacrifices, and only a few managed to escape. So if you really want to argue, you can say, hey, the Mayans did it first, not my fault they got wiped out. So the Mayans are well known for their sophisticated writing system, art, mathematics. I repeated this numerous times. These are some of their temples over here. This is their architecture, their drawings, all very intricate, very advanced. Hello, welcome. We were just in the midst. So, this is El Castillo. El Castillo is a Mayan temple constructed between 800 AD to 1200 AD. It consists of a series of square terraces leading up to a central temple at the very top via stairs. And this serves as a temple to Kukulkan, the feathered serpent deity, for the Mayans. Kukulkan also happens to be a playable character in Smite, which is the online mobile game. So on the left, you can see Kukulkan, this cool depiction in Smite. On the right is Kukulkan as depicted by the Mayans. Now, you can see from this that ancient history has influenced modern pop culture more than we would expect them to. These manifestations of influence occur in books, movies, games even, as you can see. So the past is always connected to the present because the past will influence the present. Yep, this is Kukulkan as a playable character. But this video will show you more about what the El Castillo temple really is and how its architecture is related to astronomy. I need to pay close attention to what are the astronomically significant events that is related to El Castillo. Please enjoy.
The butterflies, the peppermo, carry small pieces of light and sun on their wings. They like to leave droplets of light at the feet of El Castillo, here in the well of its Castillo. Here in the well of Itzai's Chichen Itza, we built this temple in honor of Kin, the god of the sun and time. El Castillo was built on a cenote. It has 9 platforms like the 9 levels of the underworld. Its upper sanctuary faces the 4 cardinal points. And on the north steps, during the sunset at the equinox, when night and day are the same length, Kukulkan, the feathered serpent, appears, serpent of light and stone. It comes down slowly, showing its body of both reptile and bird in 7 triangles of light, until its stone head begins to appear over the top of the stairs. It shows 7 triangles because there are 7 courses running through the... From the pyramid, we can observe the eternal movement of the sun. We can see it emerging from the horizon, navigating through the sky, and disappearing into the sea of night. Only twice a year, the sun reaches the zenith, the highest point in the sky. At this time, when the sun is directly overhead at noon, no shadows are cast on the sides of the pyramid. It seems that even the shadows are hiding from the power of Kin, the sun god. El Castillo reveals to us the moment when the sun reaches its zenith. At dawn on the 2 days when this occurs, the vertices of the 9 platforms indicate the position on the horizon where the sun will rise. At noon, the sun reaches its zenith. The shadows find shelter, they hide. And at sunset, the west staircase aligns with the solar disk on the horizon.
Okay, so I assume that you all realized that the temple El Castillo is actually arranged in a particular manner. This alignment of El Castillo's vertices and stairs with the sun is one of the areas of astronomical research of archaeoastronomy that I mentioned earlier. Anyone was paying attention and want to tell it? Why are you smiling? What is it? Don't tell me everyone forget. That's not possible. What's the area of research, my dear friend? Wow. Symbolisms of power. Yes. Almost every single analysis that we make is related to one of the research areas that I mentioned earlier. So this alignment is a symbolism of power. We also notice that there are some astronomical events that are mentioned in this video. Anyone caught wind of which events these are? Yeah, the equinox. And what is the counterpart to the equinox? Anyone know? Yeah, solstice. Don't need to whisper. Say your answer proudly. Correct. So yes, solstices. The equinox and the solstice are commonly referenced throughout multiple civilizations. The equinox refers to the point where the sun's path crosses the celestial equator. Because of this, there's equal amounts of sunlight and darkness blocking the earth. So there's equal amounts of night and day during an equinox. On the solstice, the sun's path is furthest from the celestial equator. As you can see, the northern hemisphere and the southern hemisphere are unequally lit by the sun. The northern hemisphere over here experiences more day. The southern hemisphere over here experiences longer nights. You'll notice that equinoxes and solstices are mentioned throughout almost every single civilization, and there's a reason why. How many equinoxes are there in 1 year? Couldn't see on my friend. How many are there? 2. So there are 2 equinoxes, 2 solstices. That gives a total of 4. What else in 1 year are there 4 of? I know Singapore only has 1. Seasons, yes. So essentially, equinoxes and solstices, they mark the start of a new season. And this is why every single civilization is so obsessed with equinoxes and solstices. Seasons govern agricultural patterns. Seasons govern the weather patterns. And that's why they influence the lives of every civilization that much, and that's why they pay close attention to these dates. This next video will cover the Mayan calendars. So the Mayan created 2 calendars that they follow on a regular basis. One is the Ha'ap, which is similar to our current calendar. It has 360 days with 5 added for synchronization with the sun. Second is the Dzogchen, which is their ritualistic calendar. Perhaps the video will show you better insight.
We, the Mayans, use 2 different calendars, just like all Mesoamerican cultures. One calendar of 365 days is based on the movement of Kin, the sun god. It has 18 periods of 20 days that add up to 360, so 5 days are added to keep up with the sun. Our other calendar, the ritual almanac of 260 days, is organized into 20 periods of 13 days. Both calendars begin at the same time. But after the first 260 days, each seems to take its own course. 73 cycles of 260 days and 52 cycles of 365 days go by before the calendars align again. Everything is renewed and the cycles start over again. The new fire is lit, and we celebrate that the world will live for another 52 years.
Yeah, so you can see that the Mayans have developed 2 calendars But in order to develop these two calendars, they would have to have an understanding of how the celestial bodies move, in particular, the sun, and how many times it repeats until one cycle is completed. And they also follow, not mentioned here, is a non-repeating Mesoamerican long count calendar. These calendars are one-time use, essentially. So they are very, very long in duration, hundreds, thousands of days. And they continue on until they end, at which point it doesn't continue any longer. You need to develop a continuation through a new calendar. It's sort of like how when a writer writes a story, but then they die before they can write a sequel. This is essentially what a non-repeating calendar is like. And one of these calendars is also the reason why there's that pop ended in 2012, which everyone picked up as it was the end of the world because there was no continuation. I, for one, kind of hoped that it would end so I wouldn't have to attend school the next day. Unfortunately, it didn't, so I still had to wake up 6 a.m. for assembly. But that essentially sums up how the Mayans use their calendars. So the Mayans, we've observed how the Mayans use calendars, we've observed how the Mayans constructed their architecture. Now, we'll move halfway across the world to Egypt. Now, Egyptian astronomical practices are some of the oldest, some recorded back to 7,500 BC, although the specific dates are a little bit blurred because people can't pinpoint the exact date. And they also constructed some of the grandest monuments ever. I'm sure you've heard of the Sphinx. I'm sure you've heard of pyramids of Giza. Today we'll be focusing on Nabta Playa. It is one of the earliest astronomically significant structures ever built by the Nubians, and it consists of stone megaliths erected over large distances. Nabta Playa is a region slightly south of Egypt, in this corner over here, along this river. Take note that the Nubians and the Egyptians are two different people. The Nubians hail from a region south of Egypt, present day, some other country. Anyone here knows what country is directly south of Egypt? Oh my god, you actually know. Well done. There's hope for NUS Geography department yet. So yes, the Nubians hail from Sudan. But of course, back then, there wasn't really country borders. It was just a giant mound of sand that all the people walked across. So this is one of the structures in Nabta Playa. You can already make out that there is a certain pattern to this stone structure. To the top here, there's two sets of stone, and here there's another two. This, when you draw a line through, is the north-south direction. In the center, there are 6 stones aligned here. Along these stones, if you draw another line, it will point towards the summer solstice horizon. And once again, I emphasize summer solstice. Every single culture will reference either the solstice or the equinox because it is that significant. Nabta Playa is, take note, is a region, not a particular rock formation. This is another rock formation in Nabta Playa. And this is data obtained from archaeologists. At the very center here, there is a complex structure A. It is where the observer is supposed to stand. They erected stones at large distances from this central structure. A1, A2, A3, they indicate the position of Arcturus when it rises. B2 indicates the positions of the belt of Orion, and B1 indicates the position of Sirius and Alpha Centauri. Now you'll note that Arcturus appears 3 times. Why? It is because of precession. The Earth's rotational axis wobbles over a very long period, thousands of years. Imagine the Earth as a spinning top. It will essentially wobble like this while it rotates. And it's because of this wobbling that the positions of stars will change over long periods of time. And the Nubians recognized that. They erected this stone and this stone and this stone at different time periods to compensate for the movement of Arcturus over a long period of time. So they recognized that Arcturus, the stars, they all move over. So great, you've managed to erect a bunch of rocks in the middle of the desert. What does it mean? Well, Nabta Playa used to be a very arid region. It's currently a very arid region, but it has used to have lakes that filled during the wet season. And these stones were used by the nomads, the ancient nomads, for navigation and timekeeping, using the stars as references. So this is an example of how people of the past used the stars to their advantages. They didn't have Google Maps, they didn't have GPS, they didn't have Rolex watches, so they referred to the stars as their guide. Of course, there are some other archaeoastronomical sites. These pyramids over here, and this is Amun-Re Temple, I believe. Some of these sites are topics of major conspiracy theories. I'll show you why. This is a video. I'm not sure how many of you have watched Ancient Aliens before, but perhaps I should just let you watch the video and you can make your own opinion.
Ancient astronaut theorists suggest that evidence of extraterrestrial intervention in the construction and placement of these incredible structures can also be found by examining their alignments with the stars.
If I wanted to leave behind a piece of evidence that suggests where I'm from, one way, for example, is by creating monuments that are in the shape of constellations. In ancient Egypt, the 3 pyramids are aligned with the constellation of Orion's belt. The pyramids are not the only monuments that have this particular configuration.
The ancient site of Teotihuacan in Mexico also contains 3 pyramids that are oriented to match up with the belt stars of Orion. And other sites throughout the world have been found to have similar astronomical alignments.
Hey, hi, welcome. Unfortunately, we are ending soon. So, y'all watch the video, and I'm sure y'all can formulate your own opinion. I used to love the History Channel. I watched it back when I was a kid because my parents didn't want to subscribe to Cartoon Network, and it's either I watched this or Chinese dramas. So back when I watched this as a kid, I found it fascinating and very mysterious, so it was very entertaining. But now looking back, all I can say is I'm not sure what kind of weed he's smoking, but I really want some. But whatever information presented there, there were actual academic papers that described it. I'm not sure how they defended their thesis, but they have to be very good. Oh, it's the conclusion time. So, essentially, wrapping up, almost every single ancient civilization has some view of the night sky. They have some understanding of how the stars move and its interaction with the seasons, the weather. And they all have one piece of the puzzle only. But we now, with modern technology, we, the human civilization, are able to consolidate all these pieces and learn more about the past. If there's one thing I want you all to take away from today, essentially, is by learning how people of the past understood the sky, we can learn more about how the sky was back then and how it will be like in the future. And that is all for my talk. Thank you very much. But I also have a Kahoot ready, as per standard. So if y'all don't have Kahoot, feel free to go kahoot.it. What is going on? Feel free to join in. How is the weather? I also can bring two setups or not. Can rain, maybe we can bring Aaron. 3 people, you think it's enough? I can ask Chen Xiao also. Meanwhile, while we're waiting, anyone has any questions that they want to ask about archaeoastronomy? The thing about archaeoastronomy is that some of its topics are a bit far-fetched, bordering on conspiracy theories, but it's a fine line that people have to draw, and it's difficult to realize which side they're on. People. Okay, let's start. Okay. Methods of construction, yep, it's not a major field of research in archaeoastronomy in particular, because you can leave that to archaeology by itself, right? I've mentioned these 3 countless times, and because these 3 are common throughout almost every single civilization, methods of construction is more related to archaeology rather than archaeoastronomy. Yes, thank you. All of the above. Agricultural, yes, they use calendars for keeping track of the seasons, when to plant their crops, when to harvest their crops. Timekeeping, they regulate their communal activities. And festive celebrations, it falls under a subcategory of timekeeping. So all of these are important for most civilizations. Yeah. Winter solstice is the correct answer because the summer equinox doesn't exist. Equinoxes occur in spring and in autumn. That's why it's called the vernal equinox and the autumnal equinox. There is the summer solstice and winter solstice. So there's no equinoxes happening in summer, and there's no solstices happening in spring. And total eclipses are not. The ancient people can't exactly predict when a total eclipse would happen for their particular region. That's why it's not commonly referenced to almost all the civilizations. Wow, very nice. Polaris, they can use because Egypt is north of the equator, so Polaris should be fairly visible, and it's the northern star, is what's most commonly used for navigation. Arcturus and Sirius, I mentioned previously that they were able to be used. But Equinox is in a southern constellation, relatively close to the south celestial pole, which is not visible from Egypt, so it cannot possibly use it. That's why aircraft is not used for navigation. Oh no. Nice. Okay, yes, they are all considered. The line to draw where an archaeoastronomical site is quite, it can be shifted around. Basically, as long as it has some astronomical significance and they can research more into it, it should more or less be considered an archaeoastronomical site. Yeah. Well, positions of the stars, yes. The rising positions, especially. Sun path, yes, because of the solstices and equinox. Precession of the Earth, yes, because the stars will move over time. And essentially, different civilizations have different rising positions because over long periods of time, the star's position would change. So precession of Earth, and also mentioned earlier during Nabta Playa, where the Nubians accounted for the shifting of Arcturus over long periods of time. Eclipse seasons, I don't think that they had much of an understanding of eclipse seasons because total eclipses are actually quite rare. Yes, that is about it. Let's see who the top performers are. Congratulations to Gel. Congratulations to I don't know at all. Apparently you do know. And kudos. Congratulations. And I think it's the Mayan lesson. Alright, thank you for taking part so actively. Y'all have been a wonderful audience. I think the weather today is fairly okay. And our logistics director has set up telescopes at engineering grids. Feel free to head up there anytime and we can do some stargazing. Thank you again.